Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Gordon Choi. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. A fourth nightclub in Central has been identified as the source of a COVID outbreak. Local tourism gets a boost with the opening of a new pier in Sha Tau Kok. And Joe Biden steps up efforts to tighten gun laws amid a spate of mass shootings. Health authorities have traced a COVID outbreak to another nightclub in Central, the fourth to have spawned a cluster since bars reopened 2 weeks ago. There were 499 new cases today and 2 more COVID-related deaths. Chloe Feng reports.
The latest COVID cluster was found at the Shuffle, where 14 patrons aged between 21 and 32 contracted the virus after visiting the Lang Kwai Fong nightclub between 11:30 p.m. last Saturday and 2 a.m. on Sunday. One of the patients also went to another nightclub, Zentral, the first identified bar cluster a week earlier. But authorities cannot confirm where the person contracted the virus. 3 more cases were linked to the Link Club cluster, taking the tally to 21. But no new case was added to the Iron Ferries and the Zentral clusters. Meanwhile, a nursery student is suspected of having the BA.2.12.1 Omicron subvariant. Authorities say the student from the Hong Kong Christian Services Times Nursery School in Wan Chai may have contracted the virus while taking a nap with his mask off. Hong Kong today registered 499 new cases, including 49 imported infections. There were 2 more COVID-related deaths. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
More than 250 people arrested during a police raid on a bar in Sham Shui Po have been fined a total of $1.2 million for violating social distancing rules. Officers descended on the basement bar on Tainan Street at 4 a.m., 2 hours after bars have to close. They arrested the owner as well as 151 male and 100 female customers. Each patron was given a $5,000 fixed penalty ticket. A man wanted for breaching a rehabilitation order was also arrested in the bar. There's good news for travel fans. A new tourist spot in Hong Kong's northernmost border town has rolled out the welcome mats. This comes as the government launched a pilot project as part of a plan for a metropolis along the northern border. Joanna Ho reports.
Sha Tau Kok, a restricted area which has been closed for over 70 years, has opened a new pier to welcome people wanting to travel to outlying islands such as Lai Chi Wo and Cat O. This came as the government launched a 6-month pilot project to turn the area into a tourist spot as part of a plan to develop a northern metropolis outlined by Chief Executive Carrie Lam in her policy address last year. Up to 6 local tours can leave the pier each day during weekends and public holidays. This morning, officials including Lam, Security Chief Chris Tang, and Heung Yi Kok Chairman Kenneth Lau went to the pier and visited adjoining food stalls set up by local residents. Speaking at a launching ceremony, Lam thanked the security chief whose bureau initiated the project. She recalled memories from last year when she took a ferry with Environment Chief Wong Kam Sing from the pier to Lai Chi Wo, saying she was deeply attracted by the scenery. Village houses in Lai Chi Wo have been renovated by the Hong Kong Countryside Foundation with the help of local residents. Tourists can stay overnight and participate in activities such as making stuffed tea cakes. When asked whether the attractions would cause an influx of visitors to the island, Foundation Director David Au said more ferries could be arranged to meet demand. Sha Tau Kok District Rural Committee Chairman Lee Kun Hong said officials will review the viability of the project in half a year. They will see whether it can be expanded after assessing its impact on local residents, security, and transport. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
A man has been arrested on suspicion of calling for an illegal assembly and inciting others to kill police tomorrow. Police say they seized a mobile phone from the 59-year-old man who claimed to be a security guard. He is accused of posting seditious material online to promote violence and hatred and incite people to break the law and hurt others during the anniversary tomorrow of the Tiananmen Square crackdown. In a social media post, the man is also alleged to have spoken about injuring and killing police. Officers have not ruled out further arrests and urge people not to take part in unauthorized assemblies. Overseas, President Joe Biden is expecting the divided Congress to pass gun-related laws following a spate of mass shootings across the United States. Biden proposed renewing a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity ammunition, but his opponents claim that won't solve the problem. Sarah Wong reports.
The United States continued to be rocked by mass shootings in the 10 days since a teenager massacred 19 children and 2 teachers in a primary school in Texas, as families in Uvalde buried their loved ones. Several people were shot dead and dozens wounded in Oklahoma, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Michigan. This prompted President Joe Biden to step up efforts to push the divided Congress to tighten gun laws.
More kids than soldiers killed by guns. For God's sake, how much more carnage are we willing to accept? How many more innocent American lives must be taken before we say enough, enough?
Biden called for reimposing a ban on assault-style weapons and high-capacity magazines, proposals that have been frowned upon by Republicans and gun rights supporters. The Democratic president, mindful of the emotional appeal of the Second Amendment, said the right to bear arms is not absolute. Critics were quick to accuse Biden of making suggestions that won't stop gun violence but infringe upon the constitutional rights of legal gun owners. House Democrats backed the White House by pressing ahead with a bill that would raise the age limit for semi-automatic rifle purchases to 21. Negotiators in the evenly split Senate, meanwhile, set their sights on a bipartisan deal on red flag laws and background checks. Sarah Wong, HKIBC.
Health concerns have prompted Britain's Queen Elizabeth not to attend a church Thanksgiving service, which is among the highlights of the festivities marking her 70-year reign. Buckingham Palace said the 96-year-old monarch made the decision not to go to St. Paul's Cathedral with great reluctance. She experienced discomfort after watching the Platinum Jubilee parade on the balcony of Buckingham Palace yesterday. But she managed to trigger the lighting of ceremonial beacons to mark the start of 4 days of celebrations. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg has warned of a prolonged conflict in Ukraine and advised the West to avoid escalation. It's now been 100 days since Russia invaded, and ordinary Ukrainians are struggling to rebuild their war-shattered lives. Sarah Wong reports.
A small van dropped off Nina Zelenska and her family outside the Ukrainian village of Ploshenia, on the outskirts of the capital, Kyiv. In the early days of the conflict, they were filled with anxiety and uncertainty as they fled the home they lived all their lives. The same emotions accompanied them on their return. It's been 100 days since Russia invaded their country and unleashed Europe's largest ground war in decades. Nila broke down in tears on seeing her house reduced to rubble. "We've lost everything," she sobbed. "This is our entire life." The only solace was her dog, Rex, who survived the heavy bombardment that destroyed almost everything else. Millions of Ukrainians joined Nila in trying to pick up the pieces as Russia shifted its military focus to the eastern region. The Battle of Donbass remained fierce, with the invading forces making slow progress in their campaign for the complete control of the Lugansk region. President Volodymyr Zelensky admitted that around 1/5 of Ukraine is now in the Kremlin's hand. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg, who's visiting the United States, asked the West to cautiously gear up for a long fight.
At the same time, NATO also has a responsibility to prevent this war from escalating, to become a full-fledged war between Russia and NATO. That will cause even more death, even more destruction, even more damage.
Washington, meanwhile, agreed to equip Kyiv with long-range missiles that Moscow said would escalate the conflict. Diplomacy was increasingly sidelined as both Russia and Ukraine accused each other of negotiating in bad faith. Sarah Wong, HKIBC.
The annual Dragon Boat Race has returned to Stanley for the first time in 2 years. There were fewer people and teams, but many were still happy. Chloe Fong has more.
The sweltering heat didn't deter people from flocking to Stanley to see dragon boats back in action. The races on the Tunng Holiday or Dragon Boat Festival were suspended for the past 2 years because of COVID. This year, 33 teams with a total of 700 rowers took turns in paddling for glory under a blazing sun starting at 8 a.m. This rower was elated, describing the race as awesome. He said he hadn't had such a fun time since the pandemic began and was confident that his team would go far in the competition.
I'm really excited. This is my second year doing it. So we're hyped. We've been training really hard.
This rower said he and his teammates had been training for about 6 weeks since the city's restrictive measures were gradually eased and was confident of doing well. This rower said they simply wanted to enjoy the experience and the result didn't matter. There were fewer people on the popular beach this year compared with the pre-COVID era, with up to 200 teams used to row their hearts out. This photographer, who came to capture the excitement, was slightly disappointed, saying there were not as many people in costume and makeup as in the past. With COVID still posing a risk, scanning the leave home safe was a must before entry, while police kept a check on the situation. Today's race was unofficial as the Stanley Dragon Boat Championship has been postponed to October. Tai O on Lantau also hosted dragon boat races. Chloe Fong, HKIBC.
There was a challenge for children at the Kwun Tong Promenade today. They had a chance to balance a giant plastic egg. According to legend, anyone who could successfully do so at noon would be blessed with good luck. Adults also joined in the fun at the city's first Egg Grand Gala as part of the Dragon Boat Festival. Various games for young and old added to the festive atmosphere. The organizers said the gala, which runs until Sunday, is aimed at cheering people during the pandemic. Onto the weather now. Tomorrow will be hot with sunny periods and a few showers and isolated thunderstorms. Temperatures will range between 28 and 32 degrees. Similar conditions for Sunday with heavier showers on Monday. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Friday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Gordon Choi. Good night.